So what we're brewing today is I'm going to call it my Potter IPA. And what that relays to is this is the hops. This is the first harvest of hops that I pulled off of the hops that I planted up in Potter County, Pennsylvania, up in northern PA. We got some land up there and decided to put some hops in up there, and I'll continue to do that every year. I'll just add more and more rhizomes up there and see how they grow. They kind of like that climate. Cooler. It's almost like it makes it a hardier hop. So it's a real basic recipe. 6 pounds of 2-row, 4 pounds of Maris, a pound of Crystal 120, and we're going to be doing 1 ounce and 3/4 as my bittering hops. Those are the Potter County hops. What they are is basically Cascade. That'll be put in at 60 minutes, and then I'm putting in a 1/2 ounce of Chinook at 15 and 1 ounce of Chinook at 5. I want to end up kind of with a little bit of a piney or earthy aroma and flavor there towards the end. So that's why I'm adding that particular hop to the end. So. Right about there. So that's the strike water warming up. I warm my strike water up to about 190 degrees. That way it's plenty warm to heat up the mash tun. It's been sitting in the cold and get my temperature started, and then I'll add the grains at about 168 to get my mash temperature down around 150-ish. Something like that. I'm this close to the boil. I actually ended up with more, the jars that I showed you in that shot inside.
I guess I should find somebody else then.
Is more wort that I gathered from this. Took it out because it was literally this close to the rim, and there's no way I'd be able to get a boil going. Not a good boil that would be as vigorous as I would want it to be. So I pulled that out, and bunny rabbit, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. I might try and, I don't know, I might add that in a little bit later or something. It's in the jars, are sanitized, it should be good. So it's soon time to watch the boil. Happy Homebrew Wednesday, everybody. This is SJ Porter here from Little Face Brewing. I'm thinking that it should be quite apparent what I'm about to do. That's right. I'm getting ready to make some apple cider. Now what we have is 5 gallons of fresh apple cider. No preservatives, none of that stuff. Fresh old from the apple. We have 4 teaspoons of citric acid, 3 teaspoons of yeast nutrient, and 1.5 teaspoons, actually it's 1.25 teaspoons of wine tannin. And there's several cinnamon sticks. The yeast I'm using is actually a White Labs yeast for fermenting. 10 pounds of sugar, and again, 5 gallons of cider. So I think it's time to heat some of this stuff up. What do you say? Oh. 10 pounds of sugar. I'm going to use just about 2 gallons, if I can fit this whole thing in here, which, yeah, I can get that in there. Get all that goodness up off the bottom of the jug. All you're doing here is diluting that 10 pounds of sugar. So I've taken this this pot right up to the top with 2 gallons of cider, and 2 gallons of cider and 10 pounds of sugar. That's more than just a little bit. So all I'm doing right now really is heating this mixture of apple cider and sugar, because again it was 10 pounds of sugar, and I put in 2 gallons of cider. I'm heating this up to dissolve the sugar completely. I want it completely dissolved, and I'm bringing the temperature up so that when I add this mixture into that fermenter back there, it'll bring all of the cider up, because there's 5 gallons of cider total. So I already dumped 3 gallons into that fermenter. That fermenter has 3 gallons of cider in it. Now that cider has been sitting in the cooler and ice and all that so that it stayed good. So it was cold, you know. So I want to bring the temperature overall to be right around 75 degrees. So I can pitch the yeast right away for the most part. Making cider is probably one of the easiest brews that you can actually do. It truly is. It is so easy. So for the recipe that I'm actually brewing, it's called Brewmutt's Hard Cider. It's not my recipe, it's a friend of mine's recipe. It's Mr. Steve's from Mr. Steve's Homebrew Supply Store located here in York, Pennsylvania. And his recipe is, and I've made this a couple times, and it has turned out fantastic every single time that I've made it. And it's as simple as it gets, really. So it's 5 gallons of good apple cider, no preservatives. So everybody has their their local orchard or whatever that they can get their stuff from. Ours is Brown's. So it's 5 gallons of Brown's. That's what I used. Apple cider, 10 pounds of sugar, and I'm just using regular table sugar, works out to 2 pounds a gallon. So for every gallon of cider, you want to use 2 pounds of sugar. 1¼ teaspoons of wine tannin, sometimes called grape tannin. So either one, it's the same thing. 3 teaspoons of yeast nutrient and 4 teaspoons of acid blend. So what you're doing is you put the 10 pounds of sugar in the pot, and if you can, put 2 gallons of cider in there to dissolve the sugar. Then go ahead and put your wine tannin, yeast nutrients, and acid blend in your fermenter. And go ahead and throw your other 3 gallons in the fermenter. That'll help stir it up. That way all you got to do is add the heated stuff to it. Brings your temperature up. I'm using White Labs liquid yeast. So, and it's actually cider yeast. So it's the White Labs English cider. So that's going to work out fine. And it's really that simple. So the cider, most ciders will ferment out in 4 weeks. So you want to pull it out at the end of 4 weeks until you see no activity, and put it in a secondary to clean up. Now the longer you leave it in the secondary, the cleaner it's going to get. Some say that it takes up to 8 weeks to get it nice and clean. That's pretty much a personal decision on how you want to go. So it really is just that simple. Cider is easy to make, and it's damn good to drink.